Junho Kim stood in the center of the Galactic Council chambers, his hand steady as he held the small device that would change everything. Around him, 47 different alien species sat in their special chairs, their strange bodies and faces showing little interest in what the human was about to say. They never paid much attention to humans anyway. The chamber was huge, with walls that reached so high they seemed to touch the stars outside. Each alien race had their own section, designed for their specific needs. The bird-like Velkari perched on metal bars. The slug-like Zenthi lounged in pools of warm liquid. The insect Thraxians hung from the ceiling in web-like structures. And there, in the smallest section near the back, sat the humans. Junho had been Earth's ambassador for 10 years. 10 long years of watching his people's ideas get ignored, their solutions dismissed, and their contributions forgotten. Today, that would end. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Junho began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation devices. I stand before you to deliver humanity's final message. A few aliens looked up with mild curiosity. Most continued their own conversations. The massive Thraxian delegate, Zekmora, made a clicking sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. 30 years ago, humanity joined this council with hope, Junho continued. We believed we could work together with all species to build a better galaxy. We shared our technology freely. We solved problems that had puzzled your scientists for centuries. We created trade routes that increased prosperity for everyone. In the human section, Dr. Minji Park watched quietly. She had her tablet ready, connected to every human database in council space. As the head of human scientific cooperation, she had spent years uploading research, sharing discoveries and helping alien scientists understand human innovations. Today she would take it all back. Yet every proposal we make is blocked, Junho said, his voice growing stronger. Every solution we offer is called too simple or too complicated. Every time we ask for equal treatment, we are told to wait. Our turn. The Velkari delegate, Morthak, spread his metallic wings in annoyance. Human Junho speaks of problems that do not exist. The council treats all species fairly. Perhaps humans simply need to learn patience. Patience, Junho repeated slowly. Yes, we have heard that word often. Yesterday, the council voted against our emergency response system proposal, a system that could save millions of lives during disasters. The vote was unanimous against us. The human proposal was too complex, said Yelnara, the council speaker from the Zenthi Empire. Her translator made her slimy voice sound musical. Humans always overcomplicate things. You should learn from species with more experience. Junho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. More experience. Yes, the Zenthi Empire has ruled for 3,000 years. The Velkari have explored space for 5,000. The Thraxians have built cities on 100 worlds. And yet, who do you call when your systems break down? The chamber grew quieter. Some aliens were starting to pay attention. Who designed the navigation system that guides 90% of all ships in council space? Junho asked. Who created the translation protocols that let us all understand each other right now? Who solved the food crisis on Veltara last year? Who stopped the civil war on Kexmoth by finding a compromise that satisfied both sides? Uncomfortable shifting sounds came from several alien sections. Humans, Junho answered his own questions. Always humans. You call us impatient. But we are the ones who work day and night to fix your problems. You call us simple, but our simple solutions work when your complex ones fail. You tell us to wait our turn, but you expect us to help you immediately whenever something goes wrong. In the back, Captain Taehyun Lee of the Human Defense Corps was quietly sending messages to every human facility in council space. He had been preparing for this day for months, though he hoped it would never come. His orders were simple. If Ambassador Junho gave the signal, all humans would begin leaving council space immediately. Therefore, Junho said, raising the device in his hand, by order of the United Earth Government and with the agreement of all human colonies, I formally announce humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. We will leave all council facilities and territories within 30 standard days. The chamber erupted in noise. Clicking, buzzing, gurgling, and chirping filled the air as aliens expressed their shock and confusion. This is clearly a negotiating tactic, Morthak screeched. Humans always try to manipulate situations when they don't get their way. You cannot simply leave, Yelnara added, her voice showing the first hint of concern. There are treaties, agreements, established procedures, all of which we will honor during our departure. Junho replied calmly. We will complete our current projects, transfer our responsibilities to council personnel, and remove all human assets from council space. We will not take anything that belongs to the council, and we ask only that you do not try to keep anything that belongs to us. Dr. Minji Park pressed a button on her tablet. Across the galaxy, human databases began closing access to alien users. Research that humans had freely shared for decades suddenly became unavailable. The withdrawal had begun. This is ridiculous, buzzed the Thraxian delegate. Humans contribute little of real value. Their departure will barely be noticed. Junho nodded politely. Then you will not mind our leaving. Captain Lee, please begin evacuation procedures. Captain Taehyun Lee stood and bowed formally to the chamber. All human personnel will be contacted within the hour. Non-essential staff will depart immediately. Critical system operators will remain until replacements are trained or alternative solutions are implemented. Replacements? Yelnara's voice carried a note of panic. What systems need replacing? All of them, Dr. Minji Park said quietly, speaking for the first time. Navigation, communication, life support optimization, trade route calculations, conflict resolution protocols, emergency response systems, and approximately 40,000 smaller programs that keep council space functioning. The chamber fell silent. Junho looked around at the alien faces, many now showing expressions he had learned to recognize as worry or fear. We came to you as equals, hoping to build something wonderful together. Instead, you treated us as servants, who should be grateful for your attention. Now you will have the chance to see how well you function without us. He activated the device in his hand, sending a signal that reached every human facility simultaneously. Across the galaxy, humans began packing. The council will function perfectly well without human interference, Morthak declared, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. I sincerely hope so, Junho replied. Goodbye. As the human delegation filed out of the chamber, most aliens remained convinced this was all a temporary tantrum. Within a few days, they believed the humans would come crawling back begging to be readmitted to the council. They were very wrong. Admiral Zontalak of the Krex Federation stared at his display screen in growing confusion. The numbers made no sense. 3 months had passed since the humans left, and cargo ships throughout the galaxy were arriving weeks late, or not arriving at all. Show me the shipping routes again, he ordered his navigation officer. Sir, the routes are the same as always, the young Krex replied nervously. The problem is the calculations. Our computers keep giving different answers for the same journey. Zontalak's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among his people. Different answers? That's impossible. Mathematics doesn't change. No, sir, but the algorithms do. The humans modified all our navigation systems over the years. They said it would make shipping faster and more efficient. Now the modifications are conflicting with each other. On the industrial world of Vextar, engineer Korath was having an even worse day. The planetary manufacturing system had ground to a halt overnight, and he couldn't figure out why. The power flows are all wrong, his assistant reported. The efficiency protocols are demanding more energy than the generators can provide. Korath pulled up the system specifications on his workstation. These protocols were installed 2 years ago. They've been working perfectly until now. The humans designed them, sir. They left behind technical manuals, but they're written in human style. Very confusing. Korath tried reading the human documentation. The words translated properly, but the concepts made little sense. Humans wrote technical manuals like they were telling stories, with informal language and assumptions about how systems should work. It was completely different from proper alien technical writing. Try running the system without the efficiency protocols, Koreth ordered. They tried. The system worked, but at only 12% of normal production capacity. Vextar, which supplied manufactured goods to 30 different worlds, would miss every delivery deadline for the next 6 months. At the Galactic Scientific Institute, Dr. Velamine was discovering an even more troubling problem. Research projects that had been progressing steadily for years were suddenly stuck. We can't replicate the quantum resonance pattern, his research team reported. The equipment was calibrated by human technicians and we don't understand their calibration methods. Dr. Velamine looked at the research logs. Over the past decade, humans had contributed to 89% of all major scientific breakthroughs, not as leaders, but as collaborators who somehow saw solutions that eluded everyone else. What about the atmospheric processor project on Kolveth? Stalled. The humans were providing environmental optimization algorithms. Without them, we can't balance the atmospheric chemistry. The new fusion reactor design? Also stalled. The containment field mathematics depend on human theoretical work that we don't fully understand. Dr. Velamine realized with growing horror that the alien scientific community had become dependent on human creativity without even noticing it. Meanwhile, Communications Director Tal Vesh was dealing with the galaxy's most critical problem. The galactic communication network was failing. System failures are cascading across 7 sectors, his chief technician reported. The quantum relay stations are going offline one by one. Use the backup systems, Tal Vesh ordered. Sir, the backup systems are the human systems. Everything else is too slow for modern galactic communication needs. Tal Vesh checked the maintenance logs. Human technicians had been working around the clock to keep the ancient communication network functioning. They had developed workarounds, patches, and improvements that somehow kept centuries-old equipment running at modern standards. Can we contact the humans for technical support? They're no longer responding to official council communications, sir. Far away, on the independent human colony of New Sol, Governor Heywan Choi was reading the first wave of messages from alien worlds. They weren't official council communications, but direct pleas from individual planets and species. They're asking for help with everything, her assistant told her. Navigation problems, manufacturing issues, communication breakdowns, research, projects. Some are offering to pay for human technical support. Governor Choi considered the messages carefully. What did the council say about our departure? Morthak issued a statement saying that humans were never important to galactic civilization anyway. Yelnara added that the council would function better without human interference. And now they want our help. Not officially. These are individual worlds and companies, not the council itself. Governor Choi made her decision. Send polite responses declining assistance. Explain that we're focusing on building our own civilization now. Suggest they contact the Galactic Council for help with their problems. All of them? All of them. The council wanted to see how well they could function without us. Let's give them that chance. On the trading world of Melcoria, merchant captain, Wextal was learning about unintended consequences. His cargo ships had been using human-optimized routes for so long that he had forgotten there were other ways to travel between star systems. The old routes take 3 times as long, his navigator complained, and they use twice as much fuel. Then we'll have to raise our prices, Wextal decided, but every other merchant was having the same problem. Shipping costs across the galaxy tripled almost overnight. Planets that depended on imported food began experiencing shortages. Worlds that exported raw materials couldn't get their products to market. The galactic economy, which had been growing steadily for decades, began to contract. Dr. Velamine called an emergency meeting of all council science directors. We need to discuss the human situation, he began. What situation? Asked Dr. Morketh of the Thraxian Science Academy. Humans contributed very little to real scientific progress. That's what I thought too, Dr. Velamine admitted. But look at these numbers. Research productivity is down 67% since they left. Technology development has almost completely stopped. Coincidence, insisted Dr. Zaltharan of the Velkari Institute. Humans were junior partners in our research projects. We're They? Dr. Velamine pulled up project records. In the Atmospheric Processor Project, the breakthrough came when the human researcher suggested treating the atmosphere like a living system instead of a chemical equation. In the Faster-than-Light Communication Project, progress stopped completely until a human physicist suggested using quantum entanglement in a way that violated 3 established principles. The room grew quiet. Humans think differently, Dr. Velamine continued. They make connections that we don't see. They try solutions that we consider impossible. And for some reason, their impossible solutions often work. Then we'll learn to think like them, Dr. Morketh declared. How? Dr. Velamine asked. We've been trying for 3 months. Human thinking patterns don't follow logical pathways that we can analyze and copy. They use intuition, creativity, and something they call gut feelings that we don't understand. Communications Director Talvesh burst into the meeting without being announced. The communication network has failed in 3 more sectors. We've lost contact with 18 worlds. Use alternative communication methods, Dr. Velamine suggested. There aren't any, Talvesh replied desperately. The human systems were the alternatives. Everything else is too slow or too unreliable for modern needs. Dr. Velamine looked around the room at his fellow scientists. All of them were beginning to understand the same terrible truth. They had become dependent on humans without realizing it. Worse, they had dismissed and insulted the very people who had been keeping their civilization functioning. And now, those people were gone. Maybe we should contact them, Dr. Morketh suggested quietly. Apologize, ask them to return. On what terms? Dr. Velamine asked. Equal partnership? Shared authority? The things they asked for that we refused to give them? Better than having our civilization collapse, Talvesh muttered. But when they tried to send messages to human space, they discovered another problem. The communication systems they needed to reach the humans were the same systems that were failing, because the humans weren't there to maintain them. They were trapped in a crisis of their own making, and the only people who could help them had already decided they were better off on their own. 6 months after the humans left, the Galactic Council faced its first major war in 2 centuries. The Morketh and Veltani species had been arguing over mining rights in the Kepler sector for years, but their dispute had always been manageable. Now it was spiraling out of control. Council mediator Kex Haral stood between the 2 alien delegations, feeling completely out of his depth. The Morketh delegation was making aggressive clicking sounds, while the Veltani were flashing angry colors across their skin patterns. Both species have legitimate claims to the mining system, Kex Haral began, reading from his prepared statement. Therefore, the Council suggests dividing the system equally between both parties. Unacceptable, roared Warlord Kethmore of the Morketh. Our ships discovered that system first. Our people died establishing mining operations there, flashed Veltani Commander Nalavet, her skin blazing red with fury. Kex Haral had been trained in traditional council mediation techniques, which mostly involved finding compromises that made everyone equally unhappy. But this dispute was different. Both sides had spent enormous resources on the mining system, and neither could afford to walk away. Perhaps we could establish a rotation schedule, Kex Haral suggested desperately. Both delegations began shouting at once. The suggestion was so insulting that it actually made them angrier. Before the humans left, Ambassador Junho Kim would have handled this differently. He would have found some creative solution that gave both sides something they wanted while solving the underlying problem. Maybe a joint mining operation with shared profits, or a trade agreement that made the mining rights less important, or some completely unexpected approach that no one else would have thought of. But Junho was on in, and Kex Haral didn't know how to think like a human. 3 days later, Morketh and Veltani warships were shooting at each other in the disputed system. Trade Minister Wolkani was watching his economy collapse in real time. The Galactic Trade Index had dropped 34% since the humans left, and it was still falling. "Show me the shipping reports again," he ordered his assistant. "It's getting worse, sir. Cargo ships are taking 4 times longer to reach their destinations. Many are getting lost completely. The shipping companies are demanding military escorts for protection, but our fleet is busy with the war." Volcani studied the trade routes on his holographic display. Before the humans left, cargo moved efficiently throughout the galaxy on routes that had been optimized over decades. Ships knew exactly when to leave, which paths to take, and when they would arrive. Now shipping companies were trying to recreate those routes using traditional navigation methods. The results were chaotic. Ships arrived at planets when warehouses were full or missed delivery windows entirely. Some cargo spoiled during extended journeys. Other ships burned too much fuel trying to make up time. What about the black market? Growing rapidly, sir. Illegal shipping operations are using simplified point-to-point routes. They're slower and more expensive than the human system, but faster and more reliable than what legitimate companies can manage now. Volcani realized that the galaxy's criminals were handling supply chain problems better than legitimate governments. It was humiliating. On the planet Kelmoria, Environmental Chief Raskotha was dealing with an ecological disaster. The planet's terraforming systems had been running perfectly for 300 years, maintaining the exact atmospheric balance needed to support the population. Now they were failing catastrophically. The atmospheric processors are producing too much oxygen, her chief technician reported. The chemical balance is shifting toward combustible ranges. Reduce the oxygen production. We tried, sir. When we reduce oxygen, the carbon dioxide levels spike and the temperature regulation fails. Raskotha checked the maintenance records. For the past 50 years, human technicians had been making small adjustments to the terraforming systems. They used unconventional repair methods that somehow kept ancient equipment functioning at modern efficiency levels. What did the human technicians do differently? They ignored the official specifications, sir. They made modifications based on real-time environmental readings instead of following the original design parameters. That's completely against protocol. Yes, sir, but it worked. The human supervisor called it making friends with the machines. He said old equipment develops quirks that you have to accommodate. Raskotha didn't understand what making friends with machines meant, but she understood that without those human modifications, her planet's atmosphere would become unbreathable within 6 months. Fleet Admiral Tokvalar was discovering that the humans had been preventing wars without anyone knowing it. His intelligence reports showed brewing conflicts in 7 different sectors, all of which had been stable for decades. How did we miss these developing situations? He asked his intelligence chief. We didn't miss them, sir. Human advisors were managing them through back-channel communications and strategic resource allocation. Tokvalar reviewed the classified files. Human diplomatic staff had been quietly mediating disputes, arranging trade deals that reduced tensions, and sometimes simply talking to the right people at the right time to prevent misunderstandings from becoming conflicts. The humans were conducting unauthorized diplomatic operations? Not unauthorized, sir. They were working within their official roles, but using methods that we didn't recognize as diplomacy. They called it preventive maintenance for peace. Now, without that preventive maintenance, old grievances were resurging throughout the galaxy. Species that had coexisted peacefully for generations were remembering ancient disputes. Trade disagreements were escalating into territorial claims. Minor incidents were becoming major diplomatic crises. Can we implement similar preventive measures? We're trying, sir, but human diplomatic methods don't translate well to our standard procedures. They used personal relationships, informal agreements, and unwritten understandings that we find difficult to replicate. Meanwhile, at the Human Research Station Haven Point, Dr. Sujin Han was making breakthrough discoveries that could solve many of the galaxy's current problems. Her team had developed a new, faster-than-light communication system that was more reliable and efficient than anything currently available. The quantum entanglement matrix is completely stable, her assistant reported. We can maintain real-time communication across galactic distances with minimal power requirements. Excellent. What about the navigation algorithm project? Also completed. The new routing system can optimize shipping lanes dynamically, adjusting for traffic, fuel efficiency, and delivery schedules in real time. Dr. Sujin Han looked at the research reports. Her team had solved problems in 6 months that had been puzzling galactic scientists for years. Without the bureaucracy and skepticism of the Council, Human researchers were free to pursue unconventional approaches that led to innovative solutions. Should we share these discoveries with the Council? Her assistant asked. The Council isn't interested in human research, Dr. Sujin Han replied. They made that clear. We'll share our discoveries with the Independent Colonies Alliance and any other groups that want to work with us as equals. Back on the Council's central station, emergency sessions were being held daily. The Thraxian Empire was threatening to withdraw from the Council. 3 smaller species had already left to form their own alliance. The war between the Morketh and Veltani was spreading to neighboring systems. Council Speaker Yelnara called for order as delegates shouted accusations at each other. The Council has maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years, she declared. These temporary difficulties will be resolved. Temporary? Shrieked the Velkari delegate. Half the galaxy's infrastructure is failing. The economy is collapsing. We have wars breaking out everywhere. These problems existed before the humans left, Yelnara insisted. Their departure merely revealed issues that we need to address. The problems didn't exist before, roared the Krex representative. Everything worked when the humans were here. Humans were junior partners, Yelnara repeated, but her voice lacked conviction. They could not have been responsible for maintaining galactic stability. Then explain why everything is falling apart now, demanded the Thraxian delegate. Yelnara couldn't answer that question. None of them could. The truth was becoming undeniable. Humans had been the glue holding galactic civilization together, and no one had realized it until they were gone. But admitting that truth would mean acknowledging that the Council had made a terrible mistake. It would mean accepting that the species they had dismissed as primitive and impatient had actually been keeping their advanced civilization from collapsing. And that was a truth too humbling for the proud alien species to accept. So they continued to insist that the problems were temporary, that solutions would be found, that the galaxy would return to normal without human interference. But with each passing day, normal seemed further and further away. 1 year after the humans left, Council Speaker Yelnara faced the worst crisis in galactic history. Her government was collapsing, member species were abandoning the Council daily, and she was running out of options. The Thraxian Empire has formally withdrawn, her aide reported during the morning briefing. They're forming their own defensive alliance with the Korth Collective and 6 minor species. Yelnara's skin color shifted to a pale yellow, indicating deep stress among her people. What reason did they give? Incompetent leadership and failure to maintain basic galactic services. They specifically mentioned the communication network failures and the shipping crisis. 3 more species had withdrawn the previous week. The mighty Galactic Council, which once governed hundreds of worlds, now controlled less than half of its former territory. What about our attempt to contact the humans? Still no response to official communications, ma'am. The humans have established a border around their space and are turning away all Council ships. Ambassador Morgeth was leading a desperate diplomatic mission to human space, hoping to negotiate some kind of agreement. His ship approached the boundary of human territory, near the colony world of New Terra. "This is Admiral Dong-Wook Shin of the Human Defense Corps," came the transmission. "Council vessel, you are approaching restricted space. Please state your business." "This is Ambassador Morgeth of the Galactic Council," he replied. "I request permission to enter human space for diplomatic negotiations." "I'm sorry, Ambassador, but the United Earth government is not currently accepting diplomatic contact from the Council. You may file a formal request through the Independent Colonies Alliance." "Admiral, this is urgent. The galaxy is facing multiple crises that could be resolved with human assistance." "I understand your concern, Ambassador, but those are Council problems now. The humans chose to leave because the Council was unwilling to treat us as equals. That situation hasn't changed." Morgeth tried different approaches. He offered trade agreements, technology exchanges, even territorial concessions. Admiral Shin remained polite but firm. Humans were no longer interested in working with the Council under any terms. "May I ask why?" Morgeth finally pleaded. "You may," Admiral Shin replied. "When Ambassador Junho Kim announced our departure, Delegate Morthak said that humans contribute little of real value, and our departure would barely be noticed. Council Speaker Yelnara agreed that the council would function better without human interference. We're simply giving you the opportunity to prove that statement correct. The communication ended, and Morgeth's ship was politely but firmly escorted away from human space. Back in Council territory, Dr. Velamine was leading a massive effort to reverse engineer human technologies. Teams of the galaxy's best scientists were studying every piece of human equipment they could find. The navigation algorithms make no mathematical sense, reported Dr. Zorthak, a specialist in computational theory. They use probability calculations that shouldn't work for interstellar distances, but they do work, Dr. Velamine pointed out. Human ships navigated more accurately than ours. The algorithms account for variables that we don't even measure: solar wind patterns, gravitational fluctuations, quantum field variations. They treat space travel like sailing through an ocean instead of calculating trajectories through a vacuum. Dr. Velamine studied the human technical documentation. It was frustrating to read because humans explained concepts through analogies and examples instead of formal mathematical proofs. What about the communication systems? Even worse, replied Dr. Melkotha, the communications specialist. The quantum relay modifications violate several established principles of physics. According to our understanding, they shouldn't work at all. But they did work. For 30 years perfectly. We've tried to replicate the modifications, but every attempt makes the system less stable. Dr. Velamine was beginning to understand a disturbing truth about human technology. Humans didn't just build things that worked. They built things that worked better than they should have, using methods that other species couldn't understand or replicate. The Galactic Banking Consortium was facing its own crisis. Financial Director Morkes watched in horror as currency fluctuations threatened to crash the entire galactic economy. The trading algorithms are completely destabilized, his chief economist reported. Without the human economic models, we can't predict market movements. What did the humans do differently? They treated the economy like a living system instead of a mathematical equation. They accounted for psychological factors, cultural preferences, and what they called market sentiment that we considered irrelevant. Morkes looked at the economic projections. Traditional alien economic theory suggested that markets should be perfectly rational, with prices determined by supply and demand calculations. Human economic models included irrational factors like fear, greed, hope, and cultural bias. The human models had been more accurate. Try implementing the human psychological factors. We don't understand them, sir. Humans use concepts like consumer confidence and market psychology that don't translate to our thinking patterns. The irony was bitter. The calculating, logical alien species couldn't replicate economic models created by supposedly emotional and irrational humans. Lieutenant Narai Jong of the Human Defense Corps was monitoring communications from Council space when she intercepted a disturbing transmission. "General O," she reported to her commander, "I'm picking up military communication suggesting that some Council species are considering forcible acquisition of human technology." General Changmin O reviewed the intercepted messages. Several alien species were discussing the possibility of capturing human facilities or personnel to force technology transfers. They wouldn't dare attack human space directly, General O mused, but they might try to capture isolated human ships or stations. "What are your orders, sir?" "Increase border patrols. Make sure our defensive capabilities are visible to any Council ships that approach our territory, and send a message to all human ships. Stay out of Council space until further notice." General O had hoped that the humans' peaceful departure would be respected, but desperation was making the aliens consider increasingly aggressive options. The plague outbreak on Korath Prime made everything worse. The Devour Plague, which had been eradicated decades ago, suddenly reappeared on 4 worlds simultaneously. "How is this possible?" demanded Health Director Velcora. "The plague was completely eliminated." "Apparently not," her chief medical officer replied grimly. "The humans were running continuous genetic monitoring programs throughout Council space. They were detecting and stopping plague outbreaks before they could spread. They never reported these monitoring programs. They were part of the general health and safety protocols that humans maintained. We thought they were just collecting medical statistics. Velcora realized that humans had been quietly preventing disease outbreaks for years without anyone noticing. Their monitoring systems had been so effective that other species forgot such diseases could still be threats. Can we recreate the human monitoring systems? We're trying, but the humans were tracking genetic markers that we don't understand. They seemed to know which genetic combinations would lead to plague susceptibility before the symptoms appeared. Without human disease prevention, the galaxy was becoming vulnerable to threats that had been contained for generations. Chief Engineer Koreth made one final attempt to restore the manufacturing systems on Vextar. His team had been working for months to understand human efficiency protocols. "We've identified the core problem," his lead technician reported. The human modifications created feedback loops between systems that weren't designed to communicate with each other. That should make the systems less efficient, not more. That's what we thought, but the humans somehow made the feedback loops work together instead of interfering with each other. It's like they convinced separate machines to cooperate. Koreth stared at the system diagrams. Human engineering didn't follow logical design principles. Instead, it seemed based on some intuitive understanding of how different components could work together in unexpected ways. Try removing just one human modification. They tried. The entire system crashed within hours. "The modifications are interdependent in ways we can't map," the technician explained. "Removing any single component causes cascade failures throughout the network." Koreth finally understood why reverse engineering human technology was impossible. Humans didn't just build machines. They created technological ecosystems where every component supported every other component in ways that defied traditional engineering logic. As the year anniversary of human departure approached, the galaxy was in chaos. Wars were spreading, economies were collapsing, infrastructure was failing, and diseases were returning. The proud alien species who had dismissed humans as primitive and impatient were discovering that their advanced civilization had been entirely dependent on human innovation and maintenance. But pride is a powerful force. Rather than admitting their mistake and asking humans to return as equals, most alien leaders continued to insist that solutions would be found without human help. Some were beginning to consider more desperate measures. The humans, meanwhile, were thriving in their independent colonies. 18 months after the humans left, the Galactic Council officially dissolved. The final meeting was held in a mostly empty chamber, with only 12 species remaining from the original 47 members. Former Council Speaker Yelnara stood before the sparse assembly, her skin displaying the pale colors of defeat and humility. "The Council has voted to suspend all operations indefinitely," she announced. "Member species are free to pursue their own alliances and governance structures." There were no protests, no passionate speeches about galactic unity. Everyone knew the Council had failed completely. "I must acknowledge," Yelnara continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "that our treatment of humanity was short-sighted and arrogant. We dismissed their contributions and ignored their warnings. The consequences of our pride have been severe." It was the first time any council leader had publicly admitted the truth about the human departure. Ambassador Junho Kim received the news at the New Earth Embassy on Haven Station, headquarters of the Independent Species Alliance. He felt no satisfaction in the council's collapse, only sadness for the unnecessary suffering it had caused. "Sir," his aide informed him, "we're receiving formal requests for diplomatic contact from 37 former council species. They're asking to negotiate individual cooperation agreements." Junho had expected this. As the council crumbled, individual species were reaching out to humanity, hoping to rebuild the relationships they had taken for granted. "Schedule meetings with all of them," Junho decided. "But make the terms clear. From the beginning, we negotiate as equals or we don't negotiate at all." The first meeting was with the Velcari delegation, led by Ambassador Teknara, who had replaced the arrogant Morthak after his government fell. "Ambassador Kim," Teknara began humbly, "the Velcari Republic wishes to apologize for our previous attitude toward humanity. We hope to establish a new relationship based on mutual respect." Junho studied the Velcari ambassador, Her people had been among the most dismissive of human contributions. What kind of relationship are you proposing? A full alliance agreement, technology sharing, trade partnerships, joint research projects. We're prepared to offer humanity equal status in all cooperative endeavors. Equal status, Junho repeated thoughtfully. That's what we asked for 18 months ago. Yes, and we were wrong to refuse. We understand that now. Junho considered the offer. The Velkari were skilled engineers and had valuable resources. Working with them could benefit both species. We're willing to discuss a limited cooperation agreement, he said finally, starting with small projects to rebuild trust. If those succeed, we can expand the relationship gradually. Similar negotiations were taking place throughout human space. Dr. Minji Park had established the Terran Institute for Collaborative Science on New Geneva, where alien researchers could work alongside humans as genuine equals. The waiting list is 3 years long, her assistant reported. Everyone wants to understand how human scientific methods work. Dr. Minji Park smiled as she watched mixed teams of humans and aliens working together in the research laboratories. The aliens were learning that human creativity wasn't magic or luck. It was a different way of approaching problems that could be understood and appreciated, even if not perfectly replicated. Dr. Park called out Dr. Velthara, a young Thraxian researcher. The atmospheric modeling project is showing promising results. Excellent. What approach did your team use? We tried the human method of treating the atmosphere as a living system instead of a chemical equation. It's counterintuitive, but it works. Dr. Minji Park nodded approvingly. The aliens were finally learning that there were multiple valid ways to understand the universe, and human approaches offered insights that pure logic sometimes missed. Captain Sung Ho Yoon commanded the largest human merchant fleet in the galaxy. His ships had become the backbone of interstellar trade, as alien shipping companies struggled with inefficient routes and unreliable schedules. Captain, his first officer reported, we have delivery requests from 43 different worlds this month, all offering premium rates for reliable shipping. Any from former Council core worlds? 7. They're desperate. Their domestic shipping can't handle the volume, and their delivery times are unpredictable. Captain Yoon had mixed feelings about profiting from the aliens' problems, but business was business. Humans provided valuable services and deserved fair compensation. Accept the contracts, but make the terms clear. We guarantee delivery times and cargo safety, but we charge accordingly. No more free assistance or discounted rates. The human merchant fleet was becoming wealthy by providing services that the galaxy had taken for granted when humans did them as council members. Engineer Hyojung Kim was revolutionizing starship construction at the new Busan shipyards. Her innovative designs could build vessels 300% faster than traditional alien shipyards. The key is modular construction, she explained, to a group of alien engineers who were paying substantial fees to learn human techniques. Instead of building each ship as a unique project, we create standardized components that can be assembled in different configurations. But that reduces customization options, pointed out engineer Velkoth of the Zenthi Republic. It reduces unnecessary customization, Hyojung corrected. Most ships need the same basic systems. By standardizing those components, we can focus customization on areas where it actually matters. The alien engineers took detailed notes. Human industrial methods were proving more efficient than techniques that alien species had used for millennia. We would like to license your construction methods for our own shipyards, Velkoth proposed. We can discuss licensing agreements, Hyojung replied. The fees will reflect the value of the technology. Dr. Su Jin Han published her research, findings in the Journal of Independent Science, which had become the most prestigious scientific publication in the galaxy. Her latest paper on faster-than-light communication was being read by researchers throughout known space. The paper included a personal message that became famous throughout the galaxy. To our former colleagues in the Galactic Council, we never wanted to dominate galactic science or prove our superiority over other species. We simply wanted to contribute to the advancement of knowledge and the betterment of all civilizations. We offered our discoveries freely because we believed that scientific progress benefits everyone. When you dismissed our contributions and treated us as junior partners, you taught us that our generosity was seen as weakness rather than cooperation. We have learned to value our own worth and to share our knowledge only with those who respect our contributions. The galaxy is vast enough for all species to thrive. We hope that future cooperation will be based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical assumptions about which species are more advanced than others. The message was translated into hundreds of languages and became required reading in diplomatic academies throughout the galaxy. Admiral Dongwook Shin stood on the bridge of the newest human space station, watching a steady stream of alien ships approaching the border of human space. Each ship carried delegates hoping to negotiate agreements with humanity. Admiral, his communications officer, reported, "We have official requests for trade agreements from the Thraxian Empire, the Zenthi Republic, the Korth Collective, and 15 smaller species. All offering favorable terms? Very favorable. They're competing with each other to offer the best deals for human cooperation." Admiral Shin observed the irony. 18 months ago, humans had been treated as supplicants hoping for council approval. Now the most powerful species in the galaxy were competing for human attention. Schedule the meetings, but maintain our standards. We work with species that treat us as equals, not with those who see us as resources to be exploited. The transformation of galactic politics was complete. Instead of one monolithic council controlling everything, hundreds of independent alliances had formed based on mutual benefit and respect. Humans served as connectors between many of these alliances, providing technical expertise, diplomatic mediation, and logistical support. But they did so as valued partners, not as silent servants. 5 years after their departure from the Council, humans had become the most influential species in the galaxy without conquering anyone or demanding tribute. They had achieved this position by demonstrating their worth and then walking away when that worth wasn't appreciated. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about the difference between power and influence, between dominance and leadership, between demanding respect and earning it. Former council speaker Yelnara, now serving as a minor diplomatic attaché for the Zenthi Republic, attended a reception at the human embassy. She approached Ambassador Junho Kim nervously. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "I wanted to personally apologize for my role in humanity's departure from the Council." Junho studied her for a moment. "Apology accepted, Attaché Yelnara. We harbor no grudges against individuals who are working within a flawed system. Could things have been different? If we had listened to human proposals, treated your people as equals from the beginning?" Junho considered the question. "Perhaps. But then we might never have learned to value our own contributions properly. Sometimes you have to lose something to understand its worth."